people that, much like my own journey, are really struggled with this idea that feeling I've tried everything, I've done everything. What's the point of another protocol? But yet there's still something in them that hopes, that is still curious, that's still seeking, because we all want to hope on the inside that our bodies are going to heal and they can heal. And I think to even start this conversation off, that perhaps part of the reason that we miss healing often is because we don't even really define what disease is in the body. You know, we know it's a symptom checklist. Did we meet this and this and this? And then we're going to be diagnosed with the disease. Or maybe we didn't even get diagnosed. Maybe we're a syndrome because we're just an anomaly and we know we have something wrong, but the doctor's saying, no, your results are fine. Everything looks good. And even deeper than even the trouble with defining what disease really is defining what is actually health or well-being. So perhaps maybe you can start just there with how are you viewing disease and what wellness or health looks like, and how do we know when we have one or the other?
Well, you bring up some very good points. Let me point out first that most diagnoses are not diagnoses. Okay, a diagnosis is something that points to a root cause. For instance, a sore throat is a symptom, whereas strep throat is a diagnosis because we know why. In many of the illnesses out there today, we are at the opposite end, where we look at a set of symptoms, a syndrome, like even the autoimmune diseases, multiple sclerosis, myasthenia gravis. It's a list of symptoms, and the common wisdom is to say, well, that's a roll of the cosmic dice, and we're going to manage it, not cure it, because the belief is there is no cure. So where do these things come from? And I'm talking about almost everything: OCD, ADD, schizophrenia, autism, any of the chronic diseases. Where do they come from? Well, we know they come from chronic inflammation. That's what sets it off. Our genes, everybody looks at the genetic causes, all right? And they say, I'm going to get this. Well, that's not true. Okay. When you were a baby, you didn't have it. Okay. I mean, if you had a true genetic problem, you would have had it as a baby. Okay, like genetic additions or deletions or whatever. But what happened that made these genetic predispositions express? We talk about the BRCA2 gene and BRCA1 causing breast cancer. Well, what they did was look at people with breast cancer and say, oh, they all have this gene. But they didn't study the entire population, say how many people with that genetic difficulty or polymorphism actually get the disease. Okay, what sets it off? What starts it? What continues it? So we have to work our way backwards to, okay, if this is a result of chronic inflammation that, if you will, sets off or makes the genetic predisposition express, we need to ask another question. What started that? Okay. And we start working our way. Let's say it's leaky gut syndrome that continues, or Lyme disease that set it off, or the spike protein from COVID that set it off and made it worse. We have to go backwards again. What actually happened? Okay. And you go all the way down to the cellular level. If the cells are not functioning, that means the biochemistry, its ability to repair, its ability to, reset itself from what's called a cell danger response. If that starts, we have to look at what caused that and what the downstream effects are. In other words, what it caused from that. And we have to fix the cell's ability to heal itself. This has to be remade. Why is that? Well, if you put cells together, you get tissues. If you put tissues together, you get organs. And if you put organs together for a common function, you get a body. So we need to go way back to the original insult, if you will, okay? And unfortunately, in traditional medicine presently, the thinking is, well, if I get rid of the root causes, the body will take care of itself. That's true in the acute condition, but not in the chronic condition. And remember, once it starts, and once the inflammation builds up, and once you get this particular expression, let's say we'll talk MS and we'll talk MS, okay, what the treatments are, all the protocols are geared towards trying to decrease inflammation by giving NSAIDs or COX-2 inhibitors or steroids or biologics or doing any of the other protocols out there that essentially are managing, not curing, is it possible to cure? Well, if we go down to the cellular level, it is. If we fix the cells, then it makes sense that the syndrome will either be extremely lessened or reversed. Okay, God forbid I should say reversed, because then some gentlemen with dark glasses and black suits will show up at my door, because they don't like that kind of stuff. All right, and I hate to be, I don't know if I can be cynical here, but let's remember that with big pharma, a cured patient is a lost customer. So you have to think about their motivation. Okay. Um, you talked a little bit about protocols, so we're doing one protocol after another after another. Protocols are not etched in stone. They are not a goal unto themselves, and they should be used as jumping off points, not as sacred things. And protocols, people who practice protocols are like somebody who has a hammer and everything looks like a nail. This has to be very individualized work. Everybody's a supreme individual. And the way you know that is to look at their genetics and look at the expressions and look at what that's done and test for certain things or get things by history and correct that individual's physiology, get it to work the way it was when it was a baby. If I can return you to your infant physiology, many of your ills will go away. I'm not going to claim that these symptoms, or if you will, diagnosis, will eradicate immediately. But I've had people, the one case that comes into mind is a woman who had 25 seizures a month, and that built up since she was a baby. And of course, she'd be like this because that's a lot of lightning in the brain. And it took me a year, and I ruled out everything else. And what we did was restore the cellular function. And over time, she got better. She was able to interact with her family. And presently, she's very close to normal. Okay, there's some residual, but she's not where she was. And it took a while because we had to repair the cells.
Thank you for listening to Mind Over MS. For more episodes, guided meditations, and healing resources, follow Energy Over Matter and subscribe wherever you are listening. Until next time, this is Dana Wilder signing off. Have a blessed day and a blessed life. Namaste.